Hello everyone, this is Prashanth Nagaraj, the developer of Obe Tool. So in this video, I'll be taking you through the various different tabs of Obe Tool. So this will be a walkthrough of the Obe Tool. We'll not be discussing in detail about each and every tab of Obe Tool. So for that, we'll be having a separate video. So without much further delay, let's get started. So as soon as you open the Obe tool in the OneDrive, this is how it looks like. So this is the graphical user interface of the Obe tool. So right now I'm in the first tab, which is the navigation map. And there are at the bottom, if you see, there are different tabs that are there. So you can just click on them and you can go to those tabs. There is a scroll button here in the left hand side. If you just click on that, you can see that there are different tabs that you can see, and you can navigate using that. There is one more convenient way of navigating in the Obe tool, which is my favorite one, because you can easily navigate from one tab to another tab without much delay. So that is by clicking this 3 horizontal bars. If you just see this, just click that. So in this, you can see it will show you the list of tabs that are there in the Obe tool, right? So this is the most easiest way, because you can hop onto different tabs instantaneously, rather than scrolling through serially from one tab to another tab, right? So that is how you navigate inside the Obe tool. So now the first tab, what I'm looking at is my navigation map. Right, so this is basically a graphical representation of the workflow that is there inside the Obe tool. So I would recommend you to pause the video, or probably open your Obe tool and open this particular tab and have a look at the various different workflow that is there. It is self-explanatory, so I'm not going to discuss this in much detail. So the second tab, which I see here at the bottom, is the copyright notice tab, right? So this is a tab which basically describes the terms and conditions of copyright. So again, it is self-explanatory, so I don't want to waste time in talking about this. So straight away, I will move on to the next tab, which is faculty and course details. So this is the tab from which from where you will be starting entering the data. You will start entering the data inside this particular tab, right? So one of the most unique user interface of Obe tool is wherever you see yellow colored cell, that is a user data entry point, right? So some data has to be entered in that particular cell, right? So wherever you don't see yellow colored cell, that cell probably will be protected cell, so you won't be able to edit that, right? So in this particular tab, faculty and course details, so you are expected to enter your details as a faculty, your name, your designation, the course details, the course title, the course learning outcomes, statements, the syllabus, and then if you have integrated course, or if it is a laboratory course, list of experiments, and then the course articulation mapping matrix, right? So the mapping between the course outcomes and program outcomes. So these things you will be doing inside the faculty and course details. So moving on to the next tab, what we have here is the timetable tab. So this is your personal timetable tab. So in this tab, obviously, you'll be filling your timetable. This is your personal timetable, right? You will enter the course name or course code, whatever you feel, as per your timetable, right? So that is the only purpose of this particular tab. So moving on to the next tab, that you have COPO Mapping Assist V2. That is the name of the tab. This particular tab is not used on a daily basis. This tab is only used when you have to justify your course articulation matrix. That is, you have mapped CO to PO, right? So on a 3-point scale, 3 to 1. So on what basis you have mapped, if an NBA coordinator, or basically if an NBA expert member, if they ask you to justify, so you may have to use this particular tab for that particular purpose, right? So the other reason why you will be using this tab is, if at all if you have revised your curriculum, the course curriculum, naturally in that case the course articulation matrix also needs to be revised, right? So only when the revision needs to be done, or when there is a change in the course articulation matrix or the mapping between the CO to PO, that is when you will be using this particular tab. Otherwise, you will not be using this tab on a daily basis, right? So moving on to the next tab, what we have here is the lesson plan, right? Lesson plan and execution. Well, this is the tab which you will be using on a daily basis. So in this particular tab, you can see, you have various different details that you will be entering. For instance, the resources that you will be using for your course delivery, the textbooks, the reference books, the links, and on what basis you will be evaluating, or how you will be evaluating the students in this particular course that you will be mentioning. All these details, you will find anyway in the syllabus copy, right? So the only reason why you want to put all these things here is, you can just take a copy of this along with the lesson plan, and you can upload it in the LMS so that the students will be able to understand how the course flow will happen, right? So in the bottom, if you just see, if you scroll down, there are basically two tabs, right? Lesson plan and execution. So you will obviously first, before the semester commences, you will be doing the planning part, so that you will be entering here, and once the semester starts, the execution part will come into the picture, right? So that is the purpose of this particular tab. And then let us move on to the next tab. So the next tab is your assessment configuration tab. So this is one of the most important tab. Any mistakes that you do here will obviously have an implications in terms of the Obe attainment or computation, right? So you have to be very careful. So in this particular tab, you will be configuring your assessment, right? What are the assessment instruments that you will be using? So whether it is MSE, or whether it is assignment, surprise test, or whether you are using rubrics for the evaluation, right? So if you see here, there are basically, the entire course is divided into two parts, right? One is a theory portion, the other one is a lab. So naturally you will have exclusive theory courses, then you will have exclusive laboratory courses, or it can also be a combination of both, which is, we call it as integrated courses, right? So you will be entering the weightages for the individual component, what is the weightage for theory, what is the weightage for your lab, etc. in this particular tab. And then the marks, what is the conduction marks, right? So that you will be entering in this. And in the bottom, basically you will be setting the target, right? So what is the target, attainment target that you are setting for this course, that you will be setting. And you will be obviously computing the target based on the attainment of past 3 academic years. So that you can see here. So in the subsequent videos, probably when I talk about the assessment configuration tab, I'll delve into more details into this. In the bottom, you have target setting for the course exit survey. Course exit survey is the indirect attainment part, right? Indirect assessment, and for this also you are expected to set the target. So for both theory, for both direct as well as indirect, we are setting the target. In the bottom, you will also see what are the criterias which are freezed at the institute level, at the college level, right? So on what basis you are identifying who is a weak student or who is a slow learner, and on what basis you will be identifying who is the bright learner, right? So that criteria has been freezed at the college level, so that is mentioned here. And what is the attainment criteria? Attainment criteria is also mentioned here, right? So overall, basically, in order to configure the entire assessment, you will be using your this particular tab, which is the assessment configuration tab. So moving on, we have the next tab, which is docs. In this particular tab, basically it is used as a repository for storing your various different documents related to this particular course. For instance, the Obe tool is not only used, or it can not just be used for computing your Obe metrics. It can also be used as a digital course file. right? So in a course file, you will find the question papers, the scheme and solutions, your rubrics, your teaching, your attendance sheets extracted from the continue, your CIE ledgers, your course exit survey documents, your lecture materials, any other materials, right? All these materials can be embedded inside the Obe tool, right? So the most simplest way that I would recommend for you to do this is probably you can upload all these documents in OneDrive or maybe in Google Drive, whichever is convenient. I would recommend in OneDrive. So once you have uploaded all these documents, you just embed the link to those documents in this particular cell, right? So when you do that, probably when you open this particular Obe tool, everything that is related to this particular course will be in one place. You don't have to hop around your physical course files for the question paper and then come back to the Obe tool to check the attainment, etc. All that is required for this particular course, everything will be in one place. So that is the most convenient way. It is easy for you to show this to an external evaluator or an auditor when they want to see the documents. So that is the reason why this is there. And of course, this is not mandatory to use. It is just a feature is given. So if you want to use this, feel free to make use of it. So moving on to the next tab, here you have summary tab, right? Well, this is the tab which basically is like a dashboard of your Obe tool, right? So every data that you have entered in other tabs, everything gets collated and finally it gets displayed in this particular tab. And this is the tab which you can use, which you can download and keep it as a copy, or maybe this is a tab which you can print and keep it inside your course file for future reference, right? So there is no data entry in this particular tab. It is just it's a read-only tab. You will not be entering anything inside this tab. So everything that is related to this course, in terms of the analytics, in terms of the attainment, the statistical data that is there, everything gets displayed in this particular tab, right? So you can finally have a look at it. So in a simple words, if I have to say, this is basically the horoscope of your course, right? So anyone, if they can see this particular tab, they will be able to tell you how well your class has performed or how well you as a teacher have delivered the course to the students, right? So that is the sole purpose of this particular tab. So there is no data entry. It is just a read only. You can save this as a PDF and then take a printout of this for further reference or for submitting this for your MBA program coordinator, right? So that is the purpose of this particular tab. So moving on, next we have a database tab. So I'll just move on to that. So this is the tab, as the name indicates, it is basically a database of the students, right? So you will have the student nominal roll here. So in this particular tab, you will enter the list of students that are there, their USN, their name, etc. And this is the tab where actually the marks scored by the students in MSC's mid-semester exams or in the lab exams or in the Viva-Os, all those marks that are scored by the students gets entered in this particular tab. So this is the tab where you will be mapping the questions, you will be mapping the maximum marks and the COs and the blooms, etc. entire thing in this particular tab. Just to highlight, just to tell you, you will not be entering the data in this particular tab manually. So you will be transferring the data which you will be extracting from the continue, right? So strictly speaking, there will be a transfer of data from the continue to this particular tab. So you won't be doing any manual entry, right? So just I want to highlight on that. Moving on, the next tab that you find here is the gap analysis tab. Well, this is the tab which you will be using for analyzing the gap, that is, the gap between the target attainment and the actual attainment. Obviously, you will be using this particular tab at the end of the semester in order to understand the reasons why, the factors responsible for the gap, and also provide your countermeasures or remedial actions. What are the process that you would like to do in the next academic year, or in the next instance of this particular course when you take up, so that you can improve the attainment. So all those things you will be writing on a PO basis, right? So for each PO you will be entering your assessment. So this you will be doing this exercise, you will be carrying out only at the end of the semester, when you have entered the marks for all the assessments, right? So you will not be doing this in the middle of the assessment. So moving on, the next tab that you find here is the CIE Components tab, right? So the CIE Components tab basically gives you the marks, that whatever the marks that you have entered in the Obe tool, that marks gets collated in this particular tab, on a assessment basis, right? Assessment instrument wise. So for instance, if you see here, you have MSE, you have assignment, surprise test, and so on and so forth, right? So for each and every data, wherever you have entered in various different tabs, everything comes collated, gets collated and gets displayed in this particular tab. So finally, if you scroll down, scroll towards the right, if you see here, the CIE marks for the individual students gets displayed here, right? So in simple terms, if I had to tell, this is like a CIE ledger of Obe tool, right? So you can take a printout of this and keep it for your reference, for the future reference. The other thing that you will see in this particular tab also is, based on the marks scored by the students, the Obe tool automatically computes the class ranking of the students, right? So this can be used for further analysis to understand how the students have performed over a period of time, right? So that is your CIE components. Moving on to the next tab, you have assignment or assignment test tab. This is the tab where you will be entering the marks for LA activities, right? LA1, LA2, for instance. Now, for instance, if you have conducted assignment, you will be entering the marks scored by the student in this tab, the maximum marks, the corresponding mapping of the COs and Bloom's taxonomy, etc. That is, assignment tab, assignment test tab. Similar to this, you have surprise test tab. So if you have provided surprise test, this is where you will be entering the marks for that. So for instance, you can see in this, marks have been entered, and in the maximum marks, the corresponding Bloom's level, CO mapping, etc. For each and every student, you will be entering into this particular tab. So you will not be entering the LA component in the database tab. So just to make this clear, the data entry for LA, that is exclusively for assignment and surprise test, you should enter that in the respective tabs only. Moving on from the surprise test tab, the next tab that you find here is R assignment tab. The R here basically stands for rubrics. So there are basically LA activities. They can be LA activities which are non-rubric. Rubrics are basically tools which helps in the assessment of a student in a more transparent manner. And if you have used rubrics for LA activities, then probably you may have to use this particular tab, right? So how to use this tab is a different section, different video in which I'll be explaining how to make use of this particular tab. You will not be entering the marks directly when you're doing the rubrics assessment, right? So you'll be evaluating a student based on set criteria and set levels, right? So that is how the rubrics assessment is different from conventional non-rubrics learning activity assessment, right? So similar to the assignment, rubrics assignment, here you have, if you have conducted seminar, you have R seminar, the next tab, right? So this is for dedicated for the seminar purpose. So moving on, if I just scroll right, then you have our mini project, our rubrics course project. So many courses will, you may provide course projects. So you can make use of this tab for assessing the projects, mini projects that the students have done. Similarly, you have one more tab which is our others, right? So this is maybe one more tab which is provided for the rubrics assessment, so that is why I have termed it as others. So if it's not assignment, if it's not seminar, if it's not mini project or something else you have done, maybe let us say a case study, right? So if you want to do assessment of that using rubrics, probably you can make use of this, right? So this is a rubrics based assessment. So that is why you have 4 different tabs for this: our assignment, our seminar, our mini project, and our others. Moving on to the next tab, here you have lab observations. Now in the Obe tool, basically, as I mentioned earlier in the assessment configuration tab, Obe tool can be used for all different types of courses, pure theory course, exclusive theory course, or maybe exclusive laboratory course, or maybe an integrated course. So if it has a laboratory component, right? So laboratory component will have lab observations, for instance. So if you have to enter marks for the lab observation, so that marks gets entered in the lab observation tab, right? So this is similar to that of our assignment. This is similar to that of assignment tab or surprise test tab. So all you have to do is, maximum marks, the Bloom's level, etc. But the only difference in this case being, you have to enter it on experiment number wise, right? So you have 10 experiments. Naturally, you will have to enter 10 different times. So all these things, it becomes easy if you do it on a day-to-day basis, right? So if you try to do this at the end of the semester, then the whole process will become very cumbersome, right? So you have to do it on a day-to-day basis, then this whole process will become much simpler, and the document gets, the documentation becomes much easier, right? So similar to lab observation tab, you also have a lab record tab, right? So if you have asked the students to submit records, and if you are awarding the marks for that, then you can capture those marks and enter that in the lab record, right? So this is where the marks gets entered, and corresponding the COs gets mapped onto that, right? So that is lab observation and lab record, mainly used when you have a laboratory component in your course, or if it is exclusively a laboratory component. So just to tell you one more aspect, since we are discussing about the laboratory part. So if I just go back to the database tab, right? So if you just see database, I'm just scrolling, going to this database tab. So if I just scroll towards right side, so here you will see 2 additional data entries points, right? So one is for the lab internals. So if it is a laboratory component, if you have to enter the marks, lab internals, that gets entered in this particular tab. Similarly for the Viva voice, so you have asked, let us say, each questions, 10 questions, or 10 tabs are there, 10 columns are there, sorry. So that individual marks you can enter, and corresponding COs can be mapped onto that, right? So the lab internals, Viva voice, and then you have your lab observations. This is lab observations, and then you have lab records, right? So this covers the laboratory component of your curriculum. So the next tab that we have here is Improve tab. Improve tab is a tab which you will be using only to capture any marks that you have provided or that you have awarded to the students in, let us say, for improvement test. So if there is a student who has not attained a particular CO, so you may give additional assignment for these students, and then thereby assess them so that their attainment can improve, right? So the Improve tab basically helps you in capturing the improvement test or improvement assignments that you have given for a particular student, and thereby improving the overall attainment for the class and obviously for the individual students. So that is the sole purpose of Improve tab. Probably when I discuss the analytics, I will go through this particular tab in much more detail, right? So moving on, the next tab that you have here is the overall CO attainment tab, right? So this is what is this is the most important tab in terms of the outcome of OBE, right? So we are doing all these exercise in order to do what? In order to compute the attainment. So that attainment, overall attainment, gets displayed in this particular tab, right? So for each and every student, how much is the maximum attempted marks, how much marks the student has scored, what is the percentage of attainment, and what is the grade based on the attainment percentage, whether the student has attained that particular CO, yes or no. Everything gets displayed for each and every CO in this particular tab, right? So this is the most important tab. Obviously, outcome-based education puts the student at the center of the education. Obviously, then, for each and every student, you would like to know how much attainment he or she has obtained, and this particular tabs helps you in gathering the information related to that. So that is overall CO attainment. The term overall CO attainment here basically means this is a final attainment for the students, right? So this combines all the assessment instruments, MSEs, LA activities, everything put together. That is the final CO attainment. Then probably you would also be interested in knowing assessment instrument wise CO attainment, right? So overall CO attainment basically talks about the final attainment across all combined assessments instruments, right? But you may be interested in knowing what is my CO attainment in MSE alone, right? So that is where the next tab, MSE CO attainment. This particular tab will perform the same function like an overall CO attainment, that is calculating the attainment for the individual students, with an exemption being that it is only capturing the attainment from the MSE, right? So based on the performance of the students in the MSE, what is the attainment? So that gets displayed here. Similarly, you have the assessment wise instrument in the next tab, that is for the assignment. So this is assignment attainment, and then you have CO attainment, the surprise test CO attainment. So that is if the surprise test has been given. So in this case, for instance, if you see the surprise test was given, and it was basically mapped for CO5 and CO6, so you will find the attainment that is obtained through the surprise test, right? So that is surprise test CO attainment. Then if you have used rubrics, right? So you have seen the rubrics data entry tabs earlier, which I have described, which I have shown. So for those type of assessment, what is the CO attainment, that you will find in the subsequent tabs. That is our assignment CO attainment, right? So this is rubrics assignment CO attainment. Then you have our seminar CO attainment, then our mini projects, then our others, right? So these individual tabs basically are giving the attainment on assessment instrument basis or assessment instrument wise. It is not combined, everything put together. It is on an individual assessment wise, right? So finally, the most important part, obviously for the NBA purpose, is the overall CO attainment. So this is the most important part, right? Because everything comes and collated into this. So this is your attainment tabs. These are the various attainment tabs that you have in the Obe tool. Obviously, you have attainment tabs for the lab component also. For instance, internals, lab internals, what is the CO attainment? Lab Viva WOS, what is the CO attainment? Lab observation, what is the CO attainment? And similarly, lab record, what is the CO attainment? So this assessment instrument wise, you will find the attainment that is obtained by the students. Moving on, we have till now we have seen how what are the different tabs that you will be using for the data entry, and what are the different tabs that you will be looking at for CO attainment, right? So further down the line, you have various analytics. One of the most powerful feature of Obe tool is it basically comprises of several analytics, which helps you in deep diving into your particular course and analyzing where the students have performed well, where there is a scope for improvement, and etc. Right? So analytics really helps me in analyzing the results and providing better gap analysis or countermeasures. So to begin with, the analytics basically starts with your next tab, which is CO coverage analytics, right? So this is basically a tab which describes how much marks have I dedicated for each and every course outcome across various assessment instruments, right? So for instance, in mid-semester examinations, how much marks have I dedicated for CO1, CO2, CO3, like that, so on and so forth, right? Similarly, it basically, lists the marks distribution across various assessment instruments. This is a very important analytics because at the end of the day, the NBA evaluator would like to know whether you have covered all the COs that you have listed in your curriculum, right? And whether you have conducted assessment covering all the COs. So if you have conducted that, then on how much weightage or how much distribution you have across various course outcomes, right? All those details can be analyzed using the CO coverage analytics. So you can see there's a pie chart which gives you a brief distribution of that. Then for individual assessment, right? So for mid-semester exam, surprise tests, etc., etc. So I have only carried out these two in this particular course. So similarly, if you have carried out other different assessments, you will get the pie chart for the respective assessments. Moving on, you have Bloom's coverage analytics. This is also one of the most important, the analytics. So finally, Bloom, this tab, basically what it tells is what is the difficulty level of your course, and on what basis you have analyzed students, what is the level of thinking that you have tested in your course, whether you have tested lower order thinking or whether you have tested higher order thinking, right? So each and every time you map the Bloom's level in the Obe tool, the Bloom's level, the number of times that you have used for a particular Bloom's level, that gets added, right? So here in this particular tab, it basically tells you how many number of times you have mapped the Bloom's level, right? And finally, how many times you have used L4, L5, L6, which basically talks about, let us say, your higher order thinking, and 1, 2, 3 basically talks about lower order thinking, right? So this tab helps you in understanding how well you have on what basis you have assessed the students, what is the learning difficulty that the students that you have analyzed with respect to the students, and the percentage of Bloom's mapping, etc., etc. And you have these various graphs that gets displayed, right? So that is your Bloom's coverage basically. The next tab that we have here is what I call as fence sitters. So fence sitters is a very interesting tab, right? In this tab, what we do usually is we'll provide a boundary condition or we'll provide a percentage of marks range, and then we'll ask the Obe tool to fetch the students who fall within that boundary, right? So that is why we call this as fence sitters. So for instance, let us say I'm asking the Obe tool to give me the names of the students who have attainment in the range of 50 to 60. So when I enter that, you can see these are the number of students who have not attained a particular CO, because mind you, the attainment criteria is 60% for a particular CO. So in this, it is greater than 50, less than 60, right? So these are the students who have missed attainment by a very small margin. Maybe we can give additional test for these students and then help them in improving their attainment. So that is the reason why we have. We can also ask Obe tool, give me the list of students who have scored, let us say, more than 90%, for instance, 90 and less than 100, right? So these are the students who have scored very well in that particular CO. So that means obviously they have performed extremely well in that particular CO, right? So these are bright students for that particular CO, right? So similarly, this is with respect to the CO. And if you scroll towards right, you will also have the fence sitters for the CIE. For instance, if I can tell Obe tool to fetch me the list of students who have scored more than 45 and less than 50, right? So nobody, in this particular course, nobody has scored more than 45. So let us say more than 40 and less than 50. So these number of students have scored more than 40. right? So similarly, if I can ask the Obe tool to give me the names of students, all the students who have scored less than 20, in other words, these are the students, these two students are not eligible for the final exam because the eligibility is 20 marks, right? So like this, you can basically ask the Obe tool, query the Obe tool to give you the names of the students. This can be used to identify the weak students for a particular CO, right? So there are instances where a particular student performs extremely well in one CO, but it performs very poorly in another CO, right? So then the weak students and bright students terminology cannot be applied broadly. So a student may be weak in one CO, whereas he might be a brighter student in another CO, right? So that is the reason why this fence-sitter analytics is an extremely interesting tool which you can make use for analyzing and probably targeting a particular student and helping them to improve their attainment, right? So that is your fence-sitter tab. So moving on, we have one more interesting tab, which is MSE Analytics. This is my favorite tab out of all the tabs. So in this tab, basically what we have done, once you have entered all the marks, right, in the database, automatically the Obe tool will provide you this analytics. So for instance, it provides the histogram for MSEs. It will basically, tells you who are the students who are absent for MSEs, and then who are the slow learners. So the criteria for identifying the slow learners and the bright students are set in the assessment configuration, whereas this criteria is freezed at the college level, by the way, right? The user cannot change it. So here you will find the list of names, student names, right? So you can easily identify these are slow learners in MSE 1, and similarly for MSE 2 and for MSE 3, right? So like this, basically you will be able to identify the slow learners, bright learners, and the absentees for various MSEs. Further, you can also track, if any student has not submitted the assignment. If you select the NS, in the assignment tab. So for instance, if I just go back to the assignment tab, you just see here, let me just go to the assignment tab. So this is my assignment tab, right? So here you see there is NS. NS basically stands for not submitted, right? So if I say that, if I select this, then if I go back to MSE Analytics, and in this, MSE Analytics, right? So MSE Analytics, if I just scroll, yes, this is MSE Analytics. See here, automatically that student's name gets displayed here. So this particular student did not submit the assignment, right? So I can even track which student has given the assignment, which student has not given the assignment, etc., right? So this really helps in class management, right? So further, you can also find the list of students who are not eligible, etc., and who are the students who are more than 45, who have scored more than 45, or who have scored more than 90%, for instance, right? So that toppers, as we call it, so you can list out those names. So further, the most interesting and the most useful analytics that you can find is student level progress tracking. Right, so this is a very interesting analytics. So this you can use to analyze the performance of a particular student across various assessment instruments and how he has performed and whether he has improved his performance over a period of time or whether his performance has deteriorated as we progress on to the end of the semester. So for instance, in the drop down box, if you can select a name of this particular student, you can see how the profile of the student, whether the improvement or whether not so, whether there is a deterioration in the student performance happens, right? So there is a progress indicator here. So red indicates poor drop in performance, whereas green indicates the student's performance has improved, etc., and also the marks obtained by that particular student and the percentage of the marks, obviously, and the CO attainment, etc. Everything gets displayed here in this particular tab, right? So this tab probably you can make use of this to understand how a student has performed or how he or she is performing over a period of time, right? So it's a great tab. This is MSE Analytics, which if you can make use of this alongside with the fence sitters, then a teacher can do wonders by targeting a particular students and helping them in improving in the attainment or maybe in the performance of the students, right? So these are very powerful analytics tabs. So next we have the other analytics tabs. For instance, the rubrics assignment analytics. So in this particular tab, you will find how much percentage of students are in advanced stage, or who are proficient, who are very basics, or who have performed very poor. So there will obviously be a pie chart which will be displayed here. This you can make use in order to understand how the students have performed for that particular assignment which you have evaluated using the rubrics. Similarly, you have our seminar analytics. If you have used a seminar and then mini project, this is analytics for the mini projects, then this is analytics for the others, etc. Right? So these analytics basically helps you in categorizing the students on different levels, that is poor, basics, proficient, or advanced. So you as a faculty can set the rubrics, design the rubrics and the criterias on what basis you are classifying a student as poor or basic, proficient, and advanced. All those things basically you can do in this particular or you can visualize in this particular tab, right? That is analytics for rubrics. So moving on, we have MSE Bell Curve. So this obviously in the summary tab, if I just go to the summary tab, you will find the bell curves, right? So these bell curves. So the significance of this bell curve, probably when I go into the details about the summary tab, I will explain that. For time being, I'll just skip this part. So how did I obtain this bell curve, right? So for that purpose, here if you just go to the MSE Bell Curve, so it basically displays the statistical part of it, that is the normal distribution, the z-score, and the bins and frequency, all those things. So this is just maybe a backend information that is there for generation of the histogram or the normal distribution curve. Similarly, you have a bell curve for the CIE, right? So the reason why you have a bell curve for MSE and then for CIE is obviously you want to see how the distribution has changed from MSE to CIE, right? So MSE, the student performance is very poor, but in the CIE, the student performance has been boosted. Obviously, that skewness that is there in the normal distribution gets easily reflected, right? So one can easily make out of it, right? So that, but for that particular purpose, you have these bell curves, and obviously you can use this to understand the profile of your class, that how well the students have performed across various different marks range. That is, x-axis is the marks range, whereas y-axis is the frequency of occurrence, right? Yeah, so that is your the remaining analytics tab. The last tab that you will find in the Obe tool is obviously the course exit survey tab. So if you just click on this course exit survey tab, basically is a tab where you will be entering the course exit survey results that you obtained through your survey, right? So the Obe tool does not take care of the survey part, right? So the questionnaires and the conduction of the survey and collecting the survey results, these are not within the scope of the Obe tool. The Obe tool merely what it will do is, once you have conducted the survey and obtained the results, for instance, if I have conducted a survey where the options for each and every questions would be either strongly agree, no opinion, or disagree. Based on this, you would have obtained the percentage of students who have responded for that, right, question. So that results you will enter in the Obe tool, right? So probably you might have conducted the survey in the Google form, and once you finish the survey, you will get the percentage of response for each and every options, and that results you will be entering in the Obe tool. So once you enter the results in the Obe tool, automatically the Obe tool will calculate the attainment, right? That attainment for the CO attainment by indirect means through the course exit survey for this particular course, right? So once this CO attainment is calculated, obviously if you just go to your summary or the dashboard, that is summary tab. If I just go to the summary tab, if you scroll down, you will find there is indirect attainment, right? So you can see here, this is my indirect attainment, right? So indirect attainment basically makes use of indirect CO attainment, and using that you will calculate the PO attainment through indirect means. So that gets automatically plotted, right? So this is your the results that you have obtained, that is the PO attainment that you have obtained from the course exit survey results, or CO attainment through indirect means, right? So that is how you make use of the course exit survey tab, right? With that, we have reached the end of this video tutorial on Obe tool. I hope this was very useful for you. This was an overview about the Obe tool. In the subsequent videos, I'll be discussing about some of the important tabs where, how to enter the data or how to transfer the data from different source. And I will also discuss about some of the do's and don'ts. So till then, thank you one and all for watching. Goodbye.